Welcome, Lori.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Lori is going to be one of 32 authors at the Fall Book Festival in October that will take place at the historic Greer Depot in downtown Greer, South Carolina. Lori, tell us about your book.
Well, my book is called What Happened to Normal. I happen to have it right here. Here, we'll go on this side. And it's a story about a woman whose young son is diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And it follows her journey parenting him from the time of diagnosis, which is 8 years old, through um, through getting him ready for college. So it takes you from 8 to 18. And I wrote the story because there's so little truly known about what it's like to manage type 1 diabetes. A lot of, people are familiar with type 2 and assume that a lot of the way you treat type 2 is the way that you would treat type 1. But type 1 is very different. It's an autoimmune disease, and it really requires a tremendous amount of attention 24/7. And so I wrote the book to raise awareness, to tell the story of how a diagnosis like that impacts not only the child and the family, but the mom, how it impacts her
Mm.
friendships, her relationships, her faith, her career. And so I kind of delve into all of that throughout the book. And then her concerns as a mom for his well-being and you know, his future, and how she navigates that.
So, is this based on your own son then?
So I did definitely draw on my own experience. My son was diagnosed at the age of 8
Hmm.
with type 1, and he is now grown. We are 16 years into our journey, and he has grown and happily doing well and independent. But but yeah, I did definitely base it a lot on that. I also got very involved with the type 1 community. I'm on the board and president of our state chapter for Breakthrough T1D, which used to be called JDRF, but their mission is to treat and cure type 1 diabetes. And so um, I've mentored a lot of people also through the years. So I've witnessed a lot, I've experienced a lot myself, and um, was approached by somebody to actually write a memoir.
Hmm.
And I didn't really feel like a memoir would be the best way for me to tell this story. So I decided to tell it in a novel form because then I could go more into other characters and
Mm.
other
Okay.
experiences instead of it being one dimensional and just being my experience.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
so because of the way I was able to weave in other characters and the type 1 community, um, I could give a more broader overview of what
Mm.
some of those challenges are.
So, even though it's written in fiction format, it is definitely a lot of real life, true stories that it's all based on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's factual. The name of the organization is actually in the book. The character in the book does get involved in that organization.
Mm.
And I think one of the reasons I decided to do that in the book is because I think whenever you go through any type of challenging, health crisis, whether it's diabetes or cancer, or if you're dealing with autism or you're dealing with multiple sclerosis, whatever it is,
Hmm.
I feel like it can be extremely isolating.
Mm. Yeah.
Very difficult for people to understand what you're dealing with, what your life is really like, and the stress of that on day to day. But when you immerse yourself in a community where people are experiencing the same things,
Mhm.
There's another level of understanding, there's a level of support. You don't feel as isolated. And it can also feel empowering to be
Mm.
able to get involved and make a difference for the future for the
Mhm.
people dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with. So I did make the choice to have some of the characters involved with the organization within the story because I thought it was important to show the power of community and how that can help you through any crisis.
Yeah, and you bring up a huge point that type 1 is completely different than type 2. You're not even the treatments aren't the same even though they're both diabetes. It's so vastly different.
Well, it really
Uh,
is. It really is because with type 1, it's autoimmune. So basically, your pancreas and your beta cells are attacked and they
mhm.
stop functioning and they stop producing any insulin. With type 2, the majority of people with type 2, your body is still producing insulin. It's just not metabolizing it properly. And so
Okay.
you might need different medications in order to manage those blood sugars. Whereas with type 1, the only thing that is really going to help you and the only thing that's really keeping you alive is insulin. And
Okay.
so you don't have options for different levels of treatment. Your treatment is insulin.
There is no dietary so-called fix.
No, now, does diet and exercise help? Of course. If you stay fit and you stay healthy and you eat well, then yes, it does make it a little bit easier to manage. But with type 1, you can eat extremely healthy. You can exercise every day, and you're still going and you can eat the same thing every day, and you're still going to have major fluctuations in your blood sugars. You're going to have times where you're just running high for no reason, or your blood sugar's running low for no reason. And so you're constantly acting as a pancreas to manage your insulin intake to combat either a high blood sugar or a low blood sugar. So I think that's really the crux of dealing with type 1 is everything impacts your blood sugar. And for
Mhm.
1, the only thing that's really helping you control it is insulin.
Hmm. And that's the thing is like so many of us that don't have to deal with diabetes just don't know because we haven't had that firsthand experience. We haven't had the need to, oh, we have to learn about this because it's our livelihood, literally.
Exactly, exactly. And I talk to so many newly diagnosed families who those first few years, you are just a deer in the headlights. You're trying to absorb all this information. You're trying to learn how to care for your child. You're trying to manage to keep your life as normal as possible, but there's nothing normal. Hence the title, What Happened to Normal? And so, my hope is that this book will be able to resonate with them and give them some semblance of validation and know that they're going to be okay and
Mhm.
know that there's to feel some optimism and um, hope for the future that because in those first few years you can't see past getting through the day. And so, and one of the things that I was really pleased about, I had many beta readers
Mhm.
read the drafts as I was going along with the process. And what came back to me, because I had people in the T1D community, and then I had people who were not part of the type 1 community,
Mm. Mhm.
just your average parent out there read the story. And what really made me feel good with some of the feedback was that even the parents who weren't dealing with type 1 felt like the characters resonated with them because whatever it is, they still advocate for their kids. They still are concerned for their well being,
Mhm.
their safety. They still want them to be accepted and fit in. And um, so they were able to identify with the characters, and you could take out type 1 and put in whatever situation you're dealing with, ADHD, whatever it is,
Mhm.
know that and identify with those characters because even if the day to day management isn't the same, the feelings are the same.
And I think you really hit the nail on the head with community. You found a community, so you found a group of individuals and families that were they knew what you were going through. They'd already been there. They've already done that. And I think no matter what you're dealing with, whether it's diabetes, type 1, type 2, some other autoimmune disease, finding that community, I think, is just ultra important. And to have them be able to give you feedback on your book and help you with that, I think that's also important.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think community is just so, I can't stress enough when people tell me that, they've received a diagnosis, whether they're adult and they're dealing with it as an adult or they're dealing with it for their child. I always encourage them to seek out whatever there's an organization for everything. Seek out
Yes.
whatever it is that you're dealing with and get involved with that community because not only will you feel empowered and feel a part of something that you won't feel isolated and alone. You will gain
Mhm.
so much knowledge. I've learned so much more from other parents than I did from the doctors. The doctors were great, they were attentive, but they're science based and they're taught a certain way and they
Mhm.
tell you a certain way. And then you go into the field and you talk to all the parents and you learn all the tricks of the trade. So whatever it is that you're dealing with, there's a community for it. And I really, encourage people to get involved with that community and don't isolate yourself.
Most definitely. Now, before writing this book,
Mhm.
what was your career and what have you found? Are you continuing that career or is writing now your career?
Well, that's a great question. I was an event planner. I have been, my whole background, my whole career was event planning. And when my son got sick, I stopped working. I, pretty much was mom and just focused on him. But I continued to do a tremendous amount of volunteer work in the community. So
Mm.
I was always still planning events and working on gala committees, and, outreach community events and all that kind of stuff. And then started my own event planning business later on. I decided when I started working on this to actually close my business because this project came along. I was kind of challenged to do it. And I thought, if I'm gonna do this, I'm really gonna focus. I really want to do it well. And
Mhm.
so I retired from event planning, although I still do a lot of volunteer work and event planning with volunteer work, but I retired from the business of it. And I'm still figuring out what comes next because now that the book actually today was publication day, so it's actually out there in the world today.
Yay!
Now I'm really focused on my marketing and getting the word out, letting people know about it. And so I think that'll probably be my focus for the next several months to a year. And then we'll see where we go from there.
I was going to ask, do you plan on doing another book and if so, what genre would you pick?
That's a great question. I don't know if I'll do another book, if I'll write another book in all honesty. If I were to, I mean, I love good romance. So you never know. I'm a romantic at heart. I love romance. I love family drama.
Mhm.
I always enjoy a good book like that, and I always enjoy a good beach read. So you never know where you might end up, but I don't know. I'm kind of sitting in this right now, and I'll see once the dust settles.
Now, one big question that comes up in the writing community is, are you a plotter where you have all the nice little outline, or are you a pantser where you just start writing?
I just started writing. I knew where I wanted it to start. I knew exactly how I wanted it to start. I
Mhm.
knew exactly how I wanted it to end.
Okay.
And then literally, I just wrote the beginning. I had that
Mhm.
end scene that I had in my head that I knew exactly what I wanted it to be.
Mhm.
And I wrote from beginning to end. I just started writing. So, and then I went back, like,
Oh
once,
yeah, you always end up going back through many edits, but
right. And I hired a professional editor who had many, many years of the business to help me and work with me once I had that first draft. And then, we revised it, and then she edited my second draft. And so, but yeah, no, started at the beginning and just wrote straight through. So,
I always find it interesting to see, who does what because you're an event planner. So you
right,
plan things and yet you're writing, you fall more into the pantser community where you just write as basically by the seat of your pants is how the
right.
terminology came about. And so I find that very interesting.
I did have an idea, like, I didn't even have character. Like, as I would develop a character, I would write down on a piece of paper the character. That was pretty much, oh, yeah, okay, we're going to add that to the list of characters. But I knew the points I wanted to hit.
Yeah.
So, and I knew it's broken up into sections. So we have the early years, and then we've got the middle school years, and then we've got
Mhm.
so, with every stage in life, you deal with different issues and different challenges. And so, I wanted to be able to explore that in the context of during this time frame.
Mhm.
So, so I kept that in mind as well while I was reading. Was okay. What do I want to really explore in the early years, and then what are some of the situations that come up and the challenges that come up in that time? And so I did have a little bit of an idea, but I never wrote an outline. Like I never wrote down an outline. But honestly, that's even not how I like I'm like just one of those creatives that like because event planning you have to be really creative, and I always
Mhm.
every when I worked for a client, I never was cookie cutter. I never wanted two events to ever look the same, and so
Yeah.
I really made an effort to make everything really personal. And so I didn't like sit down and write out like, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. But as I'm going along in the process, I would be sparked by something, and I would say, oh,
Mhm.
add that in. Let's. So a lot of it, as you know, being a creative, is
Mhm.
as you're thinking it through and you're working on it, you get sparked by different ideas, and then you're like, oh yeah, let me explore that. And,
Well, and I have found that with planning the book festivals.
mhm,
Ooh, that sounds like a good idea. And then you look at it and you go, oh no, that's way more work than I want to do.
exactly, that's exactly right. That's so funny.
Well, this has been so much fun. Congratulations on the official launch of your first book.
Thank you.
That is so awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing it in live and in person at the event in October.
I am
You
excited if I can share one tidbit.
yes,
Son, who is type 1 diabetic, he designed the artwork for the cover for me.
nice.
So that was a real special collaboration for me to be able to work with him. He works in sports marketing and does a lot of graphic work, but it was really fun to be able to do that with him.
That's even better. So you have a tie-in with your book illustrator with the book topic even. So
Exactly.
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share with us about your brand new book.
Mhm.
And I look forward to seeing you in person in October.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you.